Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another episode of Techbiz webinar. Techbiz webinar is brought to you by Eco Innovation Center. Every month, every last Thursday of the month, we'll bring across thought leaders to our community to take us through different topics and to help all the startups in our community grow. Eco Innovation Center is headquartered in Lagos, and EIC is an accelerator. We're also an incubator. We run incubation programs, we run accelerator programs. We give back to the society, we give back to the startups we have in our community and in our ecosystem. I know everyone is wondering, where is Mr. Victor? Mr. Victor will join us during the course of this webinar. I'm Bola Tito. I lead the project team at Eco Innovation Center, Lagos. And today we'll be having episode 103 of the Techbiz webinar. So that means we have different episodes currently on the Techbiz portal. So if we go to ecoicenter.com/webinar, you will see from episode 1 to episode 112 of Techbiz webinar. And we've covered topics that range from go-to-market strategy, that range to funding, accessing product market fit, whatever it is you feel your business or your startup need, just go to that portal. You would see resources that can help you. We've brought on board different thought leaders to take us through some of these topics. And today we have another thought leader in the room, all the way from Switzerland. And I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker. Boris Maat is the founder of Growth Unlimited. Boris has dedicated his career to helping startups achieve product market fit, having co-founded 5 ventures. So we have a thought leader in the room. Having co-founded 5 ventures, including a unicorn, which uniquely positions him as an authority in navigating the complexities of startup process and startup success. So if you're a startup in the room, just know, oh, Boris is your go-to person. And through his work at Growth Unlimited, Boris accelerates startups' journey towards product market fit, saving time and resources by providing invaluable entrepreneurial guidance. His contributions have earned him recognition as one of Switzerland's 100 digital shapers. And in addition to his role as Growth Unlimited, Boris serves as a startup strategist at IMD Lucerne, a leading business school, where he shares his insights with the next generation of entrepreneurs, including those at Stanford University. His expertise not only enriches aspiring founders, but also solidifies his reputation as a thought leader in the startup ecosystem. Boris is passionate about empowering startups to not only survive, but thrive by aligning their offerings with market demand. We're excited to hear his expert strategies today. And today, we'll be looking at the topic, achieving product market fit. Achieving product market fit is a crucial milestone for startups. Yet, many startups struggle to grasp its intricacies. And I think about approximately 70% of startups fail due to lack of market need, or highlighting the importance of aligning their product offerings with genuine market demand. And successfully achieving product market fit can significantly enhance a company's scalability and long-term sustainability. A notable example we would like to cite is Slack, which transitioned from a gaming company to a collaborative workspace tool, which we recognize today. These pivots, driven by strong market feedback, allowed them to attain product market fit and scale rapidly, and ultimately leading to a valuation of over $25 billion. In today's session, Boris will share his insights on how startups can effectively identify market needs, adjust their offerings accordingly, and secure long-term success. And with this, I warmly welcome Boris Maat to take the stage. Boris, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction. It's a honor to be here. So happy. Thanks for the invitation. And I think you do a very great and important job, right? So bringing startups to this point where they actually can accelerate or can thrive. So as well, thanks for having me. I will share my screen. So, well, today, as already mentioned, I will be talking about product market fit. Let me quickly move the screen here. So, just a second. Sorry, something is. Sorry, I just lost the connection here to my screen.
Or
Give me
would you
just
want us to share from our end?
no. Give me just 1 second. It's should be ready.
Okay.
Um, it looks already better. So perfect. Now it works. Great, great. So yeah, happy to give you some insights today on product market fit on this very important topic, right? So I would talk basically about well, giving you some insight what product market fit actually is about. It's important to understand, right? We'll be talking about why does it matter? How you can get to product market fit in a faster pace, basically, and all about as well on measuring product market fit. Probably those kind of questions that sound familiar to you, right? So it sounded familiar very to me as a founder. So I was usually asking me why nobody's using my perfect product, right? I've built something really special and I just don't have users. Or I went to many presentations, right? And I thought, why the investors just don't get it, right? So I have a very clear vision. I have a very clear kind of understanding of where we want to get. And it's a huge business. So why they don't get it? Um, I struggled, and lots of you probably struggle in this phase with all the pressure, uncertainty, right? So you don't know where it actually goes. You're testing, it doesn't work, right? So it's a back and forth situation. Then you hear probably lots of interest, right? But nobody's really committing, nobody's buying your product. And another thing is you probably realize that you have lots of stuff to do, right? It's always founder's life, it's always busy, lots of presentations, whatever. There are lots of events and so forth, and you just don't find time to talk to your customers, right? So this is something that I hear often that I went through as well as a founder. So this is typically during the product market fit phase. So let me quickly probably come to the definition what is actually product market fit actually is. So you have reached product market fit when it can answer those three questions of basically who is your customer and what is their problem or need, right? What is your solution to their problem and how do you solve it in a way that it creates proven value for you and the customer? And it's super important to think that you need to build a company that can sustain, right? So it's not about just building value for the customer and make it free or whatever, right? So it's really about building a profitable business. So you have to look for yourself as well. I went through this phase a couple of times, not only once, but probably like 5, 6 times, even in different companies, different times because we enter different markets, right? So it's not just at the beginning. You probably have to go through this product market fit phase several times with just one product or in one company, right? This is one example. I've been the CEO of this company called Kojak, and we basically provided this app where you could scan products directly on the shelf space in shops and see if those products would suit your needs, right? So it was about healthy shopping, it was about people with intolerances and so forth. We had millions of active users. We were several times the top downloaded app of all free apps, right? In German-speaking markets, we had high-profile customers like Beiersdorf, like L'Oreal, and so forth. And we had investors of all over the world. So we made several investment rounds. The question is this product market fit? Now, coming back to those questions, right? We basically had a clear idea of who was our customer. So we focused on the sustainably consumers who want to find better suitable products, right? So this was pretty clear to us. We offered this personalizable app to scan products while shopping, and people would get immediate feedback if this product suits their needs or not. And how we wanted to create value for us as well, right? We already created value for the consumers, but for us, so we want to basically sell this app to consumers with subscriptions. The thing what we figured out is that even though we had lots of users, we had a huge community, the willingness to pay wasn't big enough, right? So people were using it for free, but as soon as they had to pay, they would choose something else or probably just read the ingredients on the packaging, right? So we realized that this is not going to be our business model. Now, we switched then to advertising or added advertising as another revenue stream. Now, this makes sense in a way, right? If you have lots of users, advertising makes sense. You actually have consumers on this platform, right? But what we realized after a while is that advertising is for platforms with 100 millions of users, not with just a couple of millions of users, right? So it wasn't the right idea either. Then we came up with this genius idea of selling data and insights to corporates because we had tons of insight, tons of data, feedback from our customers to products, to ingredients, and so forth. So we could really help, but the idea was help companies to build better products, right? The problem with that is you suddenly have a different who. So it's very confusing for your team what you should now, focus on, how you should prioritize. Those two, like the users, they want transparency, right? They want full transparency. They want to know what's inside a product. The corporates, they want to sell their product. So you have this conflict of interest, right? So it gets very confusing. Usually you're a small team in a startup. So it's really key to understand who your customer actually is. And this is something you should do from the start. And this takes me to the next topic. Why does it matter, right? So you can see here on the right-hand side, the reason why startups fail. And most of those reasons are indirectly or directly linked to market. So you can see here, like running out of cash means you don't have enough customers paying for your product, or investors hesitate to invest in your product. No market need, right? This is purely market. Get outcompeted, purely market. Flawed business model, purely market. Regulatory, legal challenges. This is as well linked to your market because you should know your market, right? You should know before you start pricing, cost issues, purely market. You should understand the willingness to pay, right? So most of the reasons why startup fail are a consequence of missing actually your market. What happens, right, when you don't reach product market fit? I mean, the first and very obvious thing is like nobody's using a product, or very few people are using a product and paying for it, right? And this leads then to a high cash burn because you probably acquire lots of people to use your product, but they don't stay, right? So there's an unhealthy ratio between acquisition costs and lifetime value. Investors, they do their diligence, right? They will look at those KPIs, so they will hesitate to invest. Your team will get demotivated. You will have a competitive disadvantage because if you don't have the money to spend to invest in your product, you get outcompeted, right? So probably your competition is just much better, and obviously all this will lead to ultimately to failure. Now, when you ask now, why is this like that? So there are some typical mistakes you can do during that phase. First of all, and first and foremost, not listening enough to your customers, right? You should really have this basically as your main priority, to talk to your customers, to learn about their problems, about their needs, and so forth. So that must be your priority during product market fit phase. This is basically a consequence of this, right? You probably start solving a problem that nobody has, or it's just not big enough that somebody wants to pay for it. Because, I mean, let's be honest, we all have tons of problems, right? So, but do you really need to solve them? We just deal with lots of them, right? So we just have them and basically probably have some kind of workaround or our own solutions or whatever, but you want to pay for it, right? Then another thing that I see often is actually that startups believe that they have achieved product market fit. Sometimes they have customers, they have paying customers. And one of the problems can be that this is not a clear, let's say, customer segment. So they have probably different customers with different needs that just don't match, right? So they build different products for them, or different features within a product for them. And then you probably more like an agency, right? You always have to build something scalable. So don't think you have product market fit when you have first customers. Never ignore your competition. So always have an eye on your competition during this phase, but as well at later stages. And, like one of the biggest problem is this premature scaling. That means you start scaling because you probably, like get into this trap of, let's say, pressure of investors and so forth, or your team and whatever, and you just start basically buying customers and you cannot keep them. And that's not really sustainable. So when we talk about growth, right, at this stage, product market fit, growth is just having enough users to get feedback, right? So it's not about scaling. It's not about, having hundreds or thousands or millions of users. It's really just about having a big sample big enough to get feedback from your market. Sometimes you're in a very niche B2B market, you probably just need 1 or 2 test customers during that phase, right? But the focus is always achieving this stage where you have reached product market fit, and that means you will realize that suddenly people are pulling your product, right? So they come to you. They don't need to push all the time and talk to everybody. So they will come to you. You will see a healthy retention and as well a healthy acquisition cost and lifetime value ratio. So you don't want to spend more on acquisition than you earn from your customers, right? Once you've achieved that, your traction channels, the product you need to deliver, the benefits you need to deliver to your customer, your customer. That means after that, you can scale, right? So you have everything, actually, all the knowledge to scale. But how can you get there? And there's actually, surprisingly, quite an easy framework to do this. And this is something I'm using when I'm working with startups. The idea is actually to reduce the risk with every step, right? And reducing the risk means really building something at the end that your customers want, right? So your users want. So basically, always start with your analysis, right? Understanding your market, finding a very attractive market for you and your product. This can be a very tactical decision at the beginning. I will come to that afterwards. Can be a very niche market, a segment of a bigger market, right? But do your homework there, compare different markets, and really think of how you can actually enter this market, as well. How can you connect to those people within this market? Then, as a next step, I call this problem solution fit, which is basically understanding your customers, the problems, the needs they have, right? Before you even jump into the solution. So that means once you have identified your customers, you listen to them. It's not about talking, it's about listening to them, understanding what kind of things you can actually solve, right? And then you can come to the solution. You test the solution again with interviews, whatever. This can be a very simple presentation. It can be a prototype, whatever, right? So there's unlimited, actually, ways to do this. Next step is as soon as you know actually what kind of benefits you need to deliver to your customers, right? What they're expecting from you, you can create your value proposition. And this is the stage where you can start testing in a more quantitative way. Like before, it's all qualitative feedback. You talk to people, right? And at this stage, you can start really doing your first small campaign, creating a landing page. And, this is the typical early sign-up pages, right? So those landing pages where you actually test if people would sign up for your product, even though if at this stage you don't have a product, don't need to have a product, right? So all those stages is pre-product, right? And once you know actually what you need to build, you build a minimum viable product, so very lean product, again, this is basically a starting point. And then you start iterating, you start building, measuring, and learning from your customers and really building something they want. And then you're getting into the traction phase. And here, super important as well, which is part of product market fit. I won't talk about this because it's a huge topic today, but here comes pricing as well, right? So understanding the willingness to pay from your customers and set, kind of a starting point, optimize your pricing and so forth. And obviously then convert the early adopters. In a nutshell, you can see it here in all those different phases. It's always about your customers. So you always get feedback, you always test, you always learn from them if they would use it. And don't get me wrong, it's not about, like restricting innovation or whatever. So you come up with the great ideas, but you need to test the ideas if people actually would use it, right? So that's just a reality check, right? Now, when we talk about this phase, one thing is super important, remaining lean, because you want to save money at this stage, right? So you don't want to spend lots of money on something that is probably not your future, right? You want to have the long enough runway to build this product your customers want. And don't underestimate the time you need to get your product market fit. It can usually takes longer than you think. You will have the total flexibility. And I always say, try to not, or try to probably don't, or not to get investors aboard during the product market phase if you can, right? Sometimes it's just not possible. It's always a trade-off, right? When you in a startup life. But in best case, you don't have investors aboard this time. That means you can pivot, right? You can really build something your customers want. And when you already have investors, you've already sell kind of a vision that they bought, right? So they want to see this, right? And it's getting harder and harder the more stakeholders are involved. You will have a very sharp focus on your customer and really kind of try to deliver the value to them. You will be much faster if you run lean. It's you have really the focus on just that, and you can run those fast iteration cycles. You will develop something your customers want based on their needs, right? And obviously, all of these steps reduce the risk of failure, which is super important at this stage. So you're not going to waste your time and money for something people don't actually want. Now, when you have identified your market, it's important to start with a niche, a smaller niche of this market. We call that beachhead market. And you can learn from, those huge examples like Facebook's. They were focusing on Harvard students at the beginning. Amazon, you remember, right? This was a bookstore. PayPal, they only focus on power sales on eBay. I don't know if you know that, but that's interesting. So very, very niche. What's important though, when you choose your first niche, is that you have easily identifiable customers, right? So this means that your ideal customer profile, right? So you know who your customer actually is. You can access those customers. You know the channels to access them. They have problems. They have underserved needs. So problems that hasn't been solved yet, right? And they're a part of a big potential market, and that's super important. So don't start with a niche that is just a niche, right? So start with, let's say, a segment of a bigger market. So it means you can dominate this market, this smaller market, and then enter basically in this bigger market and grow. Now, to understand your market, you need to basically have, let's say, something tangible. And what we use usually is the ideal customer profile, ICP, right? and personas. And this is something that you can treat as an open document, right? This is something we will learn. I mean, at the beginning, you have your hypothesis on who your customer actually is, but this is something you will start testing. And now here comes the tricky point, right? When you're in B2B, you have this ICP, that means the company, right? This is basically the roof. And inside of the company, you have different personas, like probably the person who decides purchasing your product is a totally different person than the person that actually uses your product, or even it's a group of people that decide, right? So this is all things you need to understand and need to know, because you need to sell to another person than you actually build your product for, right? And in B2C, it's a bit easier because you usually just have this buyer persona, which is usually one person, right, that uses your product and pays for your product. Take, for example, a Netflix user. Well, probably there's the whole family, right, and probably all friends as well. Not these days anymore, but it used to be like that. But the actual buyer persona was just one, right? So it makes it a bit easier. Now, once you have identified this ICP, you basically want to understand the size of their problems, right? So you jump into the problem space. You want to figure out, their needs, their problems, and kind of the benefits you need to deliver to them. And only then, after that, you figured it out, you've validated that, you jump into the solution space, right? And I know it's usually the opposite way. Let's be honest, right? Most of us start with the solution space, but you can still do the whole problem space afterwards, and probably then adjust your solution accordingly, right? Now, I want to give you one example of a typical problem that created a huge solution, right? So here it's a story of Drew, a developer. He was riding on a bus from Boston to New York, and he had originally planned to do some work on his laptop. Now, this was really the early days, right? So wasn't the days of internet, whatever, or mobile internet, right? So he wanted to do some work and realized that he didn't have his USB memory stick basically with him, right? So this is something what we call organic problem, because this person had this problem, Drew had this problem, and he came up with a solution, and the solution is Dropbox, right? So everybody knows Dropbox today, but it came out from this organic need from the founder. And you don't need to have this, right? So usually it's not that you have, this is your problem is as so relevant that everybody wants to buy something or solution to that. Sometimes you really figure out a market, and you just, with learning from those consumers or customers, potential customers, you figure out the solution. So how do you do that, right? First of all, there's a lot of market research available on the internet, lots of studies and so forth. So jump in these before you do something, right? And just look up as well if someone already have solved the same problem, right? If there's a competition. Sometimes there's competition in different country, not in yours, so you can copy or learn from them as well. And then what's super rich is like talking to those people. And when I say talking to those people at this stage, it's really actually listening to those people. So really kind of let them talk about their problems, about their issues in your space, basically, right? And you will come up with lots of new ideas. It's such a rich experience. And I really do this with every startup, and everyone for everyone it's a really pain in the neck, right, to start the interviews. But everyone comes back and say, wow, this was such an experience, right? I've learned so many things. So it's super important to do this and to learn from your customers. And now this is typical, coming back now to this startup code check, right? So we basically figured out, or the original founder figured out that it was really complex to understand the ingredients listed on a package, right? There was lots of E's and whatever, so you just couldn't know if this product suits your needs, basically. So the idea was then coming up with a solution that actually translates all those cryptic information into information that's actually relevant to the user, right? So this is problem space, solution space. Now, as soon as you have figured out basically what kind of benefits you want to deliver to your ideal customer, you can start creating your value proposition. And this is as well another example of a startup I've been the CEO of. This was Trek, which basically provided or provides an app for triathlon training. And we used at the beginning one of those frameworks, actually the framework below. We help X to Y by Z, right, to create our first value proposition. In that sense, it was we help triathletes to improve their performance by an AI coaching app based on the latest sports science, recovery, goals, and performance, right? This obviously isn't so catchy, but it's usually enough for internal use because you know what you're going to do, right? But we had a really great copywriter, an internal copywriter, so he came up with this very catchy value proposition. Dynamic triathlon finally gets smart, right? Dynamic triathlon training finally gets smart. And this is something you can put on your website as well. The other one, obviously not, right? So at this stage, when you have your value proposition, you can test it. You can create, let's say, a landing page and just test if people convert on this landing page as probably early users and so forth. And then once you know actually people like what I do, my customers actually they want this, right? Then you can start building your product. I usually start with a MVP, a minimum viable product, and I'm sure everybody in this round knows what an MVP is, but I often hear there's actually a misconception of this term because like some of people I'm working with, they consider, let's say, prototype as an MVP. Others, they just want to build like their vision basically before they go test it with customers. So a fully built product basically, or the perfect product, I usually call it. It's neither, right? It's basically a functioning product. So people need to be able to use it, but it's just enough that it demonstrates the value you want to deliver to your customers, right? So it doesn't need to have every single feature, but it needs to have enough that you can actually show, okay, I want to deliver that, right? What's happening behind the scenes, if the backend is working, or you do it by yourself, or you write an email or whatever, that doesn't matter. They don't see that, right? So you can do lots of manual work. You can do lots of things that don't scale at this stage to test before you actually implement it, right? This all saves a lot of time. Now, this is an actual situation I just have because it's my son's birthday tomorrow, so obviously he wants the final product. So I just bought him lots of donuts, but right, usually people at the beginning, you just give them, like, let's say here, the naked donut, right? So because this is a donut, it looks like a donut, it tastes like a donut, so it's everything. It provides all the value without all those, let's say, fancy features on top, right? As soon as you have your first starting point, right? The MVP is a starting point to create the actual product. You enter in this feedback loop. It's all about building. It's about measuring, so getting the feedback from your users, measuring as well how they use it, learning, basically turn those assumptions you have into knowledge, right? With every single step, you will learn more on basically their needs and the product they want, right? Again, back to Trick. We had actually quite a good, I would say, way of getting fast feedback from our users. So we basically built our own Facebook group with 800 triathletes, and they were super engaged. So they were so excited to start testing this product. So what we could do is basically send them a question or send them an idea of a new feature or a design, right? Or two designs or whatever. I would really get feedback within, let's say, 30 minutes of 80, 100 people. So that really kind of sped up our whole process of product development. Now, again, important to understand the path to success when it comes to product. It's really launch quickly, don't wait, get initial customers using it, get their feedback, talk to them a lot. Like it's really about talking as well, right? It's not about just running surveys. You will get much richer information when you talk to them, iterate, provide always more value with each iteration and measure. Super important to measure. So don't do this, don't fall in this trap and basically build your perfect product and wait on customers. Then really kind of, reduce your risk of failure. Now, when I'm talking about measuring, so here as well, there's ways to measure product market fit. One of a very common way, I'm not sure if you heard about that, it's the product market fit survey or Sean Ellis test. This is a standardized survey. The good thing about that, you have benchmarks, right? Because lots of thousands of startups use that or used that in the past. So more or less that you have to achieve a certain benchmark to reach product market fit. And how does it work? You basically ask your users, how would you feel if you could no longer use this product, right? On the right-hand side, you see an example of Superhuman. So they did it in a more sophisticated way. So in order to be able then to segment the feedback as well. But just, like number one, this is the actual question, right? So when they can either answer, they will be very disappointed, they will be somewhat disappointed, or will be not disappointed. And what you want to achieve is 40% of very disappointed users or customers. And this is basically something you can run, let's say, on a regular basis, probably after you invited, let's say, a new batch of users or however you do it, right? So you can basically work with cohorts. It's always great. But you want to increase that rate. Probably start at 20%, then get to 23 and whatever, right? So it's a journey, right? And another thing is the retention analysis. So this is basically if you have a big audience using your product, then you can measure if they retain with you. And what you want to achieve is that the curve is flattening, right? So at the beginning, you will always lose users or customers because they probably just don't fit your ideal customer profile or just not interested in the moment or whatever. But what you want to achieve is that it's flattening, right? So that you keep a good rest of the people you're actually acquiring. And sometimes you still see that after a while it's not flattening, but probably you could go deeper, start segmenting users, and probably you find a segment where it's actually flattening, and then you can focus on this segment and actually push this information back to your ideal customer profile, right? So you will always learn about your customer segment, and should probably then focus on a different one that you've originally focused on, right? The other thing is you will just feel that something is different because suddenly there will be, probably some word of mouth. People like your product. New customers will come, and you don't know even from where, right? So that's very interesting. That just people start kind of asking for your product, and this is something you just feel, right? I mean, you can measure it, but you probably don't know what's happening out there in the market. But it's a great feeling when you suddenly just see people coming, right? So you actually, serve a need, right, for they have. Great. So we already coming to the end of this presentation. I just want to wrap up the key takeaways of today. So basically, you can do a lot before you actually start building products. So really test your hypothesis. Be aware that you don't know how your product should look like. You don't know probably a lot about your customer. So it's all hypothesis, and treat it like that, right? Focus on getting to product market fit. That should be your main focus, right? Don't do all the other stuff. Don't do the 240th iteration of your pitch deck or whatever. I mean, this is not necessary now. Really focus on getting to product market fit. You will save so much time, right? If you really do it really in a focused manner, you can easily save 2 years, and that's a lot. Start lean, like don't invest too much into team acquisition, whatever. Do this after reaching product market fit. Measure as much as you can. Like try to go data driven. I have to admit that it's not always you don't always have a lot of data, right? But still, try to get as much data as possible. It will help. Probably it's not statistically significant, but sometimes it just helps. It gives you a feel where you should go at, right? Then super important, product market fit is the actual founder's responsibility. You cannot delegate that, especially when it comes to sales and talking to customers. I see a lot of founders like hiring a sales rep or whatever. I always tell them you will fail. This is not going to work because you have to figure out before basically how to do this, right? How to sell, how to talk to your customers. This is all your responsibility because you have the full picture, right? And as soon as you have the blueprint, then you can hire your team, basically. And even after product market fit, remain in this experimental mode, right? Each time you build something new, each time you add a new feature, whatever, test it before building it. It will save you tons of time. That's it for today. And just I like this quote actually from Mark Andreessen. The only thing that matters is getting to product market fit. So it's really the most important thing to achieve as a startup. Here's my contact data. So feel free to reach out if you have questions afterwards, right? Or if you seek for support during that phase, I'm happy to help. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for having me, for listening, and let's jump to question, right?
Yeah, thank you, Boris. Nice session. Looked like a mini MBA, really, if I was going to say. On product building and beautiful frameworks and testing out those frameworks. I think this is quite interesting. And for me, I like the simplicity of the framework of build, measure, and learn. Okay. And when you learn, you get a knowledge, you know when to pivot, you understand the customer. Just be in that permanent loop of building, measuring, and learning. Just stay in that loop. And I like the way you ended it to say, just stay in that experimentation mode. I was reading of recent about what it means to be an innovative leader, and I found that it's encouraging a lot more of experimentation. And when you make that an organizational culture where you experiment and experiment small, and then you get it right, and then you move, I think that's what it's able to set us up better for success. So thank you so much. That was quite impactful and quite insightful. And I was just scribbling and I think I have got my notebook full with quite a lot of insights. Well, not about me. Let's get back to the people. Let's see if we've got questions in the chat room. I think I have one. You are chatting as a guest. Got it. Yes. So someone says, let's see, where's about how do you build an MVP? Oh wow, let's start from the bottom then. When is it time to pivot versus preserve if a product seems to be struggling with a product market fit? And so that's the question. You hear somebody say resilience, you got to push it and push it. Somebody else says, hey, when you're checking the data, it's time to pivot. It's there a magic wand, it's there an acid or a litmus test when you get that eureka moment to say it's time to pivot, abandon ship, or when do you stay in and just push it through?
Well, I guess this is something you need to learn as well, and probably it's easier when you have a bigger audience. So then it can really go this data-driven way, and it's probably not about. I mean, there's lots of mini pivots, right? I mean, you don't need to change your vision all the time. It's not about like changing the whole idea, but sometimes you just realize, okay, let's assume you've measured the product market fit score, and then you make an iteration, and then you see, okay, now it's getting lower. Then you probably go back, right, and then build something different. But when you see it's just not getting there, right, and after a while, I cannot. I mean, sometimes you have lots of pressure. Sometimes you have limited resources and need to do something else because you see that this is not leading nowhere, and then you decide, okay, I do this differently, and obviously, like speaking to a customer helps a lot, right? Probably you find out, okay, I hear very often that they actually want this, and I'm doing this, right? So and then when you hear this often, right, you need to kind of think on if you want to do a pivot, but it's not an easy decision. I would say we really kind of distinguish from those mini pivots that happened all the time and the really big ones, but that change basically your vision.
Yeah, and thanks. I think you healed it. It comes from the customer. Ultimately, I mean, in the work we do, we get to see quite a number of founders who we think are building for themselves. Okay, you're building because you love this product. You're just obsessed about it. The question is, there's just no market for it. There could be a gap in the market. The question is there a market in the gap? Will the market size you're approaching be able to sustain whatever you're building? And I think you just said it. It's the customers will help you make that judgment call. It's not the tiny ones, a few modifications, am I really abandoning this business model and am I creating a new business model? That's really where the main pivot is. So when you, back to the person who asked this question, is to really be obsessed, like he had said, with the customer and get the customer to let you know, are you building something for us or are you building something for yourself? Because when you're building for yourself, then you will know. But when you're building for the customer, they will help you on the journey. They will give you feedback. You will check your MVP score, the product market fit score, and then you'll find out, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And the dynamic. So, like I had said, not a difficult decision, but surrounding yourself with a lot of customers, giving feedback, checking the data, getting coaches and mentors, sitting on sessions like this, you will get that feeling because ultimately, as founders, we make those tough decisions. Nobody's going to be able to make that call for you, and it's you being enmeshed in what's happening, the operations and the feedback. That's when you get that moment when it's time to pivot. You want to say something?
And probably, I think that's great what this person mentioned. You know, it's really about understanding your customers, and this is something you can do before, as I mentioned before, you actually start building your product. So that means you already know, or let's say you already have a very clear idea of the benefits you need to deliver. That means you reduce your risk of, like changing the total or changing your vision actually. So you already know where you want to have, right? So that's something you can do before.
Okay, thank you. So someone asked about underserved market, and I think you had said something about data, the paucity of data, but maybe they wanted to create a bit more nuance. What is your advice for startups that are launching in underserved markets where customer data and feedback is limited? And so what do you think about that?
Again, if there's no data, you need to create the data, right?
Wow.
That means if you don't have lots of research available, you need to talk to your customers. Like you build your ICP and then start talking to them and then see if you're building something they actually, or if they have this problem, you assume, right? So then it's your go basically.
Yeah. Get the data. It's created. I mean, and I think that's what makes the entrepreneurial journeys so adventurous and can be so. I mean, the upsides are rewarding, but the downsides can be grueling. You just go and create. So I think entrepreneurs we don't have data. I mean, let's go back when you look at people who've created the big, social conversation platforms of Facebook of this world. Again, how many data did they have as they kept iterating? They practically were creating something out of nothing. But the data, if we pay attention and we follow the loop, which Boris had shared, which is the build, you measure, you learn. As you do that process, you're actually building data. The process of building, measuring, learning compounds knowledge. And what's again is the data, is the knowledge points and the data points that come together to create what we call the data, because again, it's different data points and the feedback it gives to us. So I think what you need to do is just experiment more and document your experimentation, have your learning logs, learn from them. You'll be shocked and amazed looking back at how many things you've learned. And because what are we talking about? The data we're talking about is our learnings, really. It's the learnings, it's the feedback we get from the market, we get from the customers. And I think that's key. Thank you so much for that, Boris. What are the key indicators that a product is misaligned with the market? How should startup respond when they recognize that? I don't know. I think this is quite an obvious one, but again, I'm not asking the question. It's coming from the people. What are the key indicators that a product is misaligned with the market, and how should startups respond when they recognize that?
Well, I mean, it's basically when you use those measurement methods, you will see if you cannot keep your customers, right? If they not stay with you, would be the retention rate.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay enough, if you pay too much actually to acquire those customers, right, then you cannot keep them. That means you will never build a sustainable business when you pay more than you actually receive, right? So that's important. Customer acquisition cost and lifetime value, not easy at the beginning, I have to admit, but retention is a good indicator. And obviously, if people just don't use your product, don't pay for your product, this is something you will see quite fast. Sometimes it's probably your pricing as well, right? So you need to experiment on the pricing side as well. But this should be at a later stage. So at this stage, you should already know if people actually like your product or not.
Yeah. Thanks, Boris. And I think the market always talks to us as entrepreneurs. It always tells us and I think that's what Boris is saying. You will find that I just can't make money. You'll find that the product's just not tracking. You'll find that there's no stick effect. You've got a one-time customer and they never come back. There's no better way for them to know that you built, part of my French, maybe something shitty or something that nobody wants to continue to use. So when stick effects, I think is a big factor. Will they recommend it? Will they come back? Will they use it? You begin to say that. I think that's one. And like I said, your cost of acquisition. Ultimately, when you put these two together, it means you just can't make money. When you can't make money in the business, you're already positioned for bankruptcy. Question is why continue that part? So I think the key thing is you will know that you do not see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're acquiring at your high cost and they're not staying. You know that you're going to burn out of money. You're going to see that you will have your fume state quite early because your run rate will be quite high. So those again are basic things that startups need to understand. Investors are looking at those things, and that's when you quickly know there's a misalignment. No matter how much you love a product, if the market does not love the product, then the product is not for the market. Okay, and I think that's basically what we've tried to share today. Okay, so someone's talked about the pricing you talked about today. Speaking about pricing, what's your advice to a business that gives different pricing to different clients just to get market validation? Is that a method? Is that a style you will subscribe to? Different price points to different client type for market validation, or how will you think one gets feedback on pricing?
Well, first of all, at the beginning, I wouldn't focus on different market segments. So it really, at this stage, right, I would focus on just one ideal customer profile and really try to, kind of bring those into the whole process and test your pricing with, let's say, a very homogeneous group, right, of people that have the same problems. And that means you still can have different price tiers. Pricing is a great way to, or there are so many ways to experiment with pricing, right? Mm-hmm. What's good as well to probably set your first initial pricing, just, a big tip. You can actually use your interviews, those early stage interviews, when you talk about the problem, when you want to listen about the problems of your customers, you can always ask them on the alternatives or the ways they're actually solving their problems at this stage and how much they pay for that, right? So that gives you already good insight on the willingness to pay of your potential customers. And that's a good starting point, much better than just try it with different market segments, because the more variables you have, the less insights you'll get.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you. That's a good one. And that's a good partnership. The more variables you have, the less insights you get, because again, they're everywhere, and it's customers are bombarded with information and products and so many things. They're not going to spend so much time on something. You lose them. They begin to give you feedback that's not very truthful with time. They get confused. And at the end, I think I'll go with that. It's the more variables, the more they get confused, the more insights. So that's quite instructive. And I think I do remember in my earlier days working for a top multinational, and they had something we called pricing the consumer way, which was basically when we built a product, it was a fast-moving consumer product. When we built a product first, we tried to go to market to test how much the consumer is willing to pay for the product before we fix our pricing. And you'll be amazed that, and again, we had this on your side, how much we're looking for to get in margins. Then it was a gross margin of 35% for you to be able to launch a product, to get a sign off from the management to get the product. And you'll be shocked that there are products that we've developed, and consumers were willing to pay more, so you could get a greater gross margin. okay, which is good news, which means you can go faster to the market. They've responded well. And there are times that they were not willing to pay, and you saw that your gross margins were not going to deliver what will qualify for launch, and then you're back to redesigning the products and saying what things do I need to dial up, what was missing in this, how do I improve what is called the perceived value of the product. Okay, and you know, this again is something I think quite a lot of startups can learn as we build the MVP, rather than create so many pricing, is to see how you work with people who understand how to do consumer research to see how is the perception of value, and are you communicating well based on, is it being perceived, and based on the perception of the values bring, how much are consumers willing to pay. I think that gives an indication of what good price points will be, and to learn. And again, I just remember that we did a lot of those experiments in my earlier years working with a global multinational launching products across and everywhere.
Actually, it's actually an interesting point you just mentioned, that you're surprised how many times you underestimate the willingness to pay, right? So
yeah,
when you do your homework, when you really build the product your users or your customer want, you will underestimate how much they want to pay for it, right? Because what happens that founders usually live in the future. They already see a product how it could look like in 2 years, and they always think, oh, this is crap, this is not good enough, right? But I mean, your users or your customers, they don't know about that. They don't know about your vision, right? You're just selling this solution to their problem. Usually they, you know, want to pay something for that because it helps them, right? So
yeah, true. So I think that's a good way to learn for that. But again, everything that's great finally comes to an end, and we need to say a big thank you to Boris. He's done an exciting job for me. I was like, wow, am I back to the classroom or something? It's frameworks, it's structures, but again, when the company is growth unlimited, then this is expected, because ultimately it's about why have a startup when you can't scale, why have a startup when you can't grow. And we've learned tremendously from your wealth of experience, and I see comments everywhere. And I think for everyone on the Zoom, I see it across all the other platforms. It's quite impactful, and we can't take all the questions because again, we need to respect our facilitator for today, who we've committed will be on the hour, and of course all the participants across all the platforms. But it won't be I mean, we can't end without saying a big thank you to you for taking out your time to want to give back. I think it is an hallmark of great leaders who ultimately, in their busy schedule, the only thing that's finite is our time. Everything is infinite, but time is infinite. So when we see great leaders like yourself who give out their time to give back to other people in ecosystems building, trying to find their way and their part in life, and you do this, we think it's remarkable, and the impact is beyond what you see. The impact really reverberates beyond now, because I'm sure somebody on this call will take an initiative, will build a better product, will become successful, and will create something that will transform the lives in emerging markets and less developed countries like we find ourselves today, and what might just save a life or make life better for someone. So thank you so much, Boris, and we do appreciate your time and the pain you take to put that presentation together and to deliver such an impactful session. Thank you very much from me and from everyone in the team and who have listened to you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And for everyone who's been a part of this, thank you for across all the platforms for choosing to be to tune into the Techbiz webinar, which is Eco-Innovation's way of giving back. We've seen in this part of the world that hand-holding and providing mentorship, much more than giving people money, is the biggest way to be able to help entrepreneurs scale, because we think when you handhold people, when you provide that support for them, it saves them from making quite a lot of mistakes and wasting quite a lot of resources. And in one way of fulfilling that mission of helping startups and entrepreneurs to scale and to achieve commercialization is what we do with the Techbiz webinar. We basically is bringing subject matter experts from across the globe who speak on diverse topics that will help your journey. And they come 1 hour once a month to share from their world of experience and what they've learned. And that's what has happened today. And thanks for keeping the date with us, everyone. And I think my colleagues, this recording, as this is the 113th episode, this along with every other episode, this will be available by 12 noon tomorrow when you go to the our site, and my colleague is dropping again the chat in the chat box www Techbiz Eco Innovation /webinar, and you will find my colleagues dropping in there. You'll find this recording so you can go over it again and you can ask questions. And should you want to join our supportive group of over 3,000 startups and ecosystem builders, where you can ask questions on the go, you can know about opportunities that are available, grants, initiatives, and different things. Join the Techbiz Nation, which my colleague also is dropping the link. Join the Telegram page, join the WhatsApp group, ask your questions. Don't wait until once a month when we have these sessions, and then we can support you on the go. So try to join the community, try to access the 112 resources, excuse me with that, and I think it will be very beneficial for you. Oh, excuse me. Balatito, can you come from this place?
All right, just like Mr. Victor already mentioned, let's join the Techbiz webinar community, Techbiz Nation community, both the WhatsApp community and the Telegram community. Thank you, Boris, for the awesome session. I also want to use this opportunity to talk to us quickly as regards the Art of Technology Lagos. It's an annual tech event where we bring together thought leaders. And this year, the focus is on AI. We understand AI is big. So if you want to register, to attend, to speak, to sponsor, or to even exhibit, go to aotlagos.com. This is the 6th iteration of AOT. So to attend AOT Lagos 6.0, my colleagues will join there. We'll drop the link in the chat session. Also, there is an Agri-Innovation Summit that they're supposed to happen next month. So 31st of October next month, we're having an Agri-Innovation Summit. We're bringing together stakeholders in the agri and food system value chain, as well as techpreneurs. If you want to register for this summit, click agriinnovationsummit.com. The link will be dropped in the chat section as well. Thank you, everyone, for attending the 113th episode of Techbiz webinar. Till next month, the last Thursday of the month, we'll bring another thought leaders. Just like it has been mentioned, all the resources, the previous recordings, presentations, they are available on the Techbiz portal. Go to ecoicenter.com/Techbiz. You will see the 112 episode we've done in the past, and today's episode will be ready before noon tomorrow. All right, see you next month. Bye.